Former Michigan Congressman Mike Rogers is hoping to return to Capitol Hill. The Republican is looking to replace Senator Debbie Stabenow in the Senate and has the backing of former President Trump. So let's bring in Senate candidate Mike Rogers. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks for being here. This is a blockbuster Senate race in a blockbuster battleground state for the presidency. So a lot is riding on this, it looks like. But I want to talk to you about your race because you have been an outspoken critic against Donald Trump in the past. I mean, last year here on Face the Nation, you said that you think people are, quote, tired of the chaos and ready for a calm and steady helm. But in running for the Senate, of course, you have endorsed the former president and he has endorsed you. So what has changed?
Well, first of all, primary squabble, and we are well into this election cycle. And the most important thing that I think people are going to have to make up their minds, I certainly did, who is better prepared to close the border and stop the chaos? Who is better prepared to do something about the cost of groceries and gasoline, food, eggs, bread? I mean, who's going to do something about electric vehicle mandates that are actually killing the labor community here in the great state of Michigan? And by the way, impacting families in a very negative way here. So when you look at those big, weighty issues, to me, there isn't much of a debate on this. And we are looking to the future. How are we going to turn this around in a timely way so that people don't have to take out a mortgage to buy eggs and bread?
And Congressman, I mean, your seat is critical for Republicans who are hoping to gain the majority in the Senate. Do you think that Trump is a help or is he a hindrance to down ballot races like yours?
I think he's a help. He's up in the state of Michigan. And what I think people don't understand is around the country when they look at a state like Michigan, we're a hardworking place. We are people who get up every day and go to work. We take care of our kids and put them on the bus. And guess what? The rules of the game feel rigged for people like that. They are not doing as well as they were in the past. $1,000 more per month in inflation tax right on their family budget. Matter of fact, I argue in Michigan, the most expensive vehicle to operate in 2024 is your shopping cart. And we have just story after story. I was talking to a clerk the other day who said her worst day isn't when the cart comes in skinny. It's when people have to reach up on the conveyor belt, take it off, and put it back in the cart after they ring it up, because groceries are still getting more expensive. And so those are the kinds of issues, and that's why people are moved. Trump was never ahead in the state of Michigan in 2016 when he won. He's ahead in the state of Michigan today. Again, labor, our Black communities around the state are starting to ask hard questions. Our schools are failing. Our job opportunities are gone. Our incomes are down. Our 401ks are down. Something's not working. And that is an opportunity for us to talk about hope and future and all those other things that we are doing in the state. That's why I think Donald Trump being in the state, coming back, talking the way he does, that triggers some people to get excited about this race. That's all good for the state, and it's really going to be good for people's pocketbooks come 2025.
I want to ask you about the election itself, because we have had some prominent Republicans who aren't committing to accepting the results of the election in November. Here's Florida Senator Marco Rubio over the weekend for an example.
Will you accept the election results of 2024 no matter what happens, Senator?
No matter what happens? No, if it's an unfair election, I think it's going to be contested by either side.
Senator, no matter who wins.
I think you're asking the wrong person. The Democrats are the ones that have opposed every Republican victory since 2000, every single one.
What do you think this says about the state of the Republican Party right now? And also, will you accept the results of the election?
So I think looking back right now is really not helpful to anybody. What we have to do in order to win, and I know this, I ran and won the closest congressional race in the country the year that I won. I won by 111 votes. And here's how you do it. You look forward, you talk to people, you build ballot integrity operations. We're doing that all over the state to try to keep honest folks honest. And we are building a volunteer base. We think we're going to hit 15,000 volunteers by October. They're going to go door to door. They're talking to people. They're talking about issues that matter to them. Trust me when I say this, Caitlin, people are hurting financially. Our food banks are overflowing with people showing up of all demographics, all economic status. You would be surprised. It's hard. And so what we're trying to do is talk about things that are going to get to the next place. And one way we do that, we know, turn out voters who want to make a difference, turn out voters who are going to vote their pocketbooks, and turn out voters who are going to vote their values in this state going forward. And we're going to win. That's how we're going to win.
And just to be clear, though, given all those efforts you described, you would commit to supporting the results, whatever the outcome.
Listen, I'm going to support who wins an election fairly. Absolutely, I'll do that. And one way we're going to make sure that happens is we're going to build out our own election integrity army here in the state of Michigan to make sure that happens.
And I want to ask about a specific issue in Michigan, a national issue, but resonating particularly in Michigan, and that's the administration's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. Your Senate primary is in August, but some Democrats in your state are urging voters to vote uncommitted in the Democratic primary, obviously in opposition to the administration. How do you see this issue playing out? And do you think that this is an issue that will help Republicans in Michigan this November?
Well, it certainly gives Republicans an opportunity to have conversations with our Arab American and Muslim community in Michigan. Absolutely. We find that there are so many issues, their businesses, their education, their future possibilities here in the state that line up with Republicans. And listen, the Muslim community has a saying, at least around Dearborn, that says, "Hey, if better to be stabbed in the face than the back." And I meet with them, and I've talked with them, and they feel that the Biden administration and Democrats have stabbed them in the back. And so this gives us, as Republicans, and I'm a pro-Israel guy, but we can now have conversations that weren't open to us before. And I'm having those conversations, and we're finding very fertile ground in these people willing to have conversations with us. I think that's going to hurt Democrats. I think the UAW Auto Worker Coalition is starting to fall apart for Democrats. Black males in Southeast Michigan starting to drift away from the Democrat Party. All of those spell trouble for the Democrats. And remember, if just 10% of the 113,000 Arab Americans who went down to the poll on a cold February day in Michigan and voted uncommitted, that's intensity, by the way. If just 10% do that and live up to the fact that they're just not going to vote, that's a higher margin than Trump won Michigan in 2016. They have trouble. That's why this race is competitive. That's why we're having real conversations with every coalition in Michigan about how life is going to get better financially, for your kids' education, for a secure border, and for crime going forward. Those choices are very, very clear.
All right. Well, Congressman Mike Rogers, thank you for being here. As I said, this is a big race, so we will certainly be talking in the future and paying attention to this one. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thanks, Caitlin. Hope to see you.